Welcome back to Sika Strength. Welcome back to Sika Stan. Today we're discussing the top 5 exercises to be the most powerful judo athlete you can be. Judo is a massively physically demanding sport. There's no hiding from the gym. In many other combat sports, we see some gurus coming out with this weird anti-strength and conditioning views, but in many cases in other sports, if you have a talented freak of an athlete, then you can get away with it. But let's be real, no judoka is winning Olympic gold medals without heavy lifts and hard conditioning. So, in 5th place on our list is the single arm row. We all know how important upper body strength is to judo, both defensively and offensively, and you cannot discount the value of strength in the shoulders and arms. A single arm row should be the mainstay in almost all of your S&C programs. But there is only one optimal variation, and that is the single arm bench-supported cheater dumbbell row. In terms of body position, the athlete should be hinged at the hips with shoulders just above the level of the hips. Have a small bend of both knees, and the non-working arm should be used on a flat bench or other kind of support. So the next question is, how much cheating should you be using for a single arm cheater row? The ideal amount of cheating is a bit of scapular movement and a small bit of torso roll. When your arm is fully extended and the dumbbell is at its lowest point, the shoulder should drop slightly down, lengthening the subscap muscles and giving a good amount of stimulus to the shoulder. Then, at the top, these muscles should contract and pull the shoulder blade back. The arm then obviously works to bring the point of the dumbbell up all the way into the armpit. Aside from this extra shoulder work, there are 2 other huge advantages of the cheater row instead of the strict or machine variations. The first of these is that the cheater variation allows you to obviously use more weight and do more overall volume. The other advantage is that the cheater variation uses a certain amount of the stretch shortening cycle. The tendons in the shoulder are a major area of concern for judokos, and so this offers a great source of prehab stimulus. So if you're planning your next training block or kitting out your home gym, you should be considering a heavy dumbbell or 2, or maybe even a nice heavy kettlebell. Generally speaking, a good cheater row should be built up to around 25% of body weight, so if I was buying training gear, I'd start with a 15 kilo and a 25 kilo dumbbell or kettlebell. Number 4 on the top list of judo exercises then is the power clean. Now, I know you probably thought this would be listed in the top 1 or 2 exercises for powerful throws, but in application, it's simply not. The power clean is exceptionally useful for 2 reasons. The first is training fast muscle fiber contraction, culminating in a strong and aggressive extension of the hips, knees, and maybe even ankles. But the real value of the power clean, or the Olympic lifts in general, is training the speed at which you can contract maximally, then relax completely, and then contract maximally again. This is what makes the power clean so much more useful than something like a med ball throw or a weighted jump. This skill of maximal contraction as quickly as possible, then full relaxation, allows for the athlete to react to their opponents as effectively as possible. Particularly in the sport of judo, the reaction time variable cannot be understated. There are reams of studies on reaction times in judo and their predictive values of success. So, when we're looking to suggest movements for athletes, we should always have this in mind. Over the shoulder throws or maximal output slams, just train the contraction potential and capacity of an athlete, and not the speed of reaction to contraction, the power or relaxation of contraction, and the rate at which we can cycle between the 2. On to number 3 then. Now, having just spoken about the importance of power and speed, up next on our list is the slowest and highest force movement on the list, the deadlift. Specifically, the conventional deadlift. Judo is about being able to horse someone onto the ground, right? Well, yes, but it's also about making sure you don't get horsed onto the ground first. Nothing builds more strength in the trunk and develops more strength in hinging than the deadlift. I don't care if you wear a belt or you use straps or not, whether you use a deadlift bar or a standard bar, bumper plates or steel plates, none of that really matters. What matters is you do plenty of volume and that the volume is done at a significantly heavy load. Heavy deadlifts, and plenty of them, make you very, very strong. They also give you an exceptionally efficient training stimulus. You can deadlift once per week for the rest of your life and never have to increase frequency. In fact, you may even go to deadlifting once every 10 days and still make the same amount of progress. This does not happen with other exercises, trust me. So, why does the deadlift get a bad name among S&C coaches and crazy podcast guests? Well, it's that stimulus to fatigue ratio and the inherent risk of injuring your back when that fatigue becomes excessive. That's where the risk lies. The great news is that you, as a judoka, are already willing to get your head slammed through the tatami, so it doesn't really matter. But, honestly, I'm joking. There is little to no risk in you as a judo athlete doing a deadlift. Judo leads to well-developed and strong athletes, and the hinging of the hips is constantly trained when pulling and lifting opponents. Doing a single session of deadlifts in the week is not going to pose a risk to you unless the loading is completely wrong or the athlete's technique is abysmal. The penultimate position on our top 5 then is the bench. The big dog, the OG of strength training. The bench press holds a larger-than-life position in the hearts of people who need to be big and strong. But why? Why would judo athletes or power athletes need to lie on their backs and do such a static and isolated movement? Is it because it's easier to learn, or requires less range of motion, or because you can use more weight and progress more quickly? Well, to be honest, it's all of those and some more with them. The bench press, in the form of a moderate grip, flat back, is the ultimate upper body strength exercise. Training the arm extensors, the shoulders, the lats, the chest, hands and wrists, I think it's quite easy for us to think about sports like rugby or football and justify the bench press, where players are fending off tackles, pushing players away, and making big hits with their arms abducted and shoulders contracting. But in a sport like judo, the bench press is absolutely vital too, allowing you to keep your opponent at arm's reach and driving your grip into their chest, while also resisting them pulling you and dragging you around. The bench press can train you for this better than any other derivation or variation of upper body pressing. It allows for you to train very effectively with a small amount of coaching and technical cueing, and to push weights far heavier and faster than if you were to train the strict press, military press, or a seated press variation. In terms of positions, it doesn't require the challenging positional prowess of the push press, which, to be honest, will be just as effective, but you find me, a judoka who has a good front rack position and who doesn't have any neck or shoulder pain, and I'll be very impressed. We can take a pretty standard athlete with an 80 or 100 kilo bench press and bump them up to a 120 or 140 1RM in a relatively short time. Unfortunately, you just aren't going to get as heavy, as fast, as consistently with any of the other variations. Plenty of volume and a couple of sessions per week and you'll be well on your way to significantly better upper body strength. And of course, in first place is the back squat. In the power game, it's all about moving heavy weights fast, and nothing allows us to move heavier weights faster than the back squat. The foundational strength of a judoka should be their back squat. The exact styles and quirks aren't hugely important, but generally speaking, high bar mechanics, sitting to below parallel, and you'll be well on your way. But let's dig into this a small bit. What do we mean by high bar mechanics? Well, in this context, we want moderate stance width, so set your feet somewhere between hip and shoulder width. We want the torso to remain relatively upright, so as to bias leg development and have a better balance between anterior and posterior chains, rather than the forward lean and back dominant outcome of the low bar squat. Strangely enough, the bar being slightly lower on the back in a somewhat moderate bar position will actually be best for athletes by limiting the leverage the bar has on the torso and getting a more stacked upper back position. If you were to do one thing this year to make you feel more physically dominant in training and in competition, it's hard to get bigger and better results than by adding 5 to 10% to your 1RM back squat. You certainly don't need to be in some sort of perma-bulk to make this kind of progress either. Most of our athletes will run about 2 or maybe 3 bigger squat cycles per year, where they're really concentrating on their squat. Then for the rest of the year, they go into a maintenance pattern and maintain about 90 to 95% of that 1RM they've gained. So the vast majority of your time is not spent majorly leveraging the back squat, but the back squat should always be the foundation of your strength training. It's the base upon which you build your judo, your power clean, your deadlift, your lunge strength, and ultimately your athletic physique. If you have any questions about anything we've discussed here, then please let us know down in the comments. As always, if you need programs to get stronger, faster, and more powerful, please check out the link below and see the Sika Strength app, available on iOS and Android. And just for you judokos, we have the Combat Sports program. 10 weeks of periodized programming. It is the perfect thing to run about 12 weeks out from a big competition. Starting with a block of strength work, then leading through to a power and speed peak, you'll be a more formidable beast than ever before. Thanks for watching.